Hello, my name is Emily, as you may or may not know, and today we are going to be diving into your roommate horror stories. And something that I was thinking about, in regards to these sort of call and response videos is I ponder the question, right? What is stopping people from just completely lying to me? And the answer is really nothing. And I don't normally condone or encourage lying, but I do hope that for the sake of today's video, everything that I have been perusing is a crock full of shit. I hope that you guys have been lying straight to my face, just for your own sake, because, yeah. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, of course, I want to talk about today's lovely sponsor, NoCD. Let me ask you this. Do you ever replay a conversation in your head over and over, trying to figure out if you accidentally said something hurtful? Or do you ever go back through a memory again and again because you feel like you need to be absolutely sure of what happened? Or do you ever get suddenly flooded with doubt about your relationship and you're totally unable to let it go, no matter how many ways you try to reason your way out of it? A lot of people might just chalk that up to being an overthinker or overly anxious. But if that kind of thought spiral causes you a lot of distress or makes you feel like you need to do something better, that can actually be a symptom of OCD. And I know what some people might be thinking, OCD, really? But it's true. And a lot of the stereotypes about OCD only being centered on organization or being overly neat are actually so far off from what OCD actually is. The reality is that OCD can show up in many different ways. There isn't just one avenue for it. Sometimes the symptoms are only in your mind, like unwanted thoughts that you can't shake or distressing doubts that just won't go away no matter what you try. And because those experiences can resemble anxiety or overthinking, they're often dismissed, minimized, or overlooked entirely, which is a problem because OCD can be genuinely debilitating if it's not managed. The good news is OCD is highly treatable with the right kind of therapy, and OCD requires a specific type of therapy called exposure and response prevention therapy, or ERP. Regular talk therapy isn't recommended for OCD and can actually make it worse. And that is where NoCD comes in. NoCD is the world's leading OCD treatment provider, and they accept insurance for over 138 million Americans. All of their licensed therapists are trained specifically in OCD and ERP, and they work with you in live virtual sessions. And in between those sessions, you're not on your own. You can message your therapist, or you can join live support groups, or use any of the tools in the NoCD app anytime you need support. If anything I described sounds familiar, please don't brush it off. You can go to nocd.com and book a free 15-minute call today to learn more about how they can help. That is nocd.com, and thank you to NoCD for sponsoring today's video. All right, now what everyone's been waiting for, let's get into the horrors! Let me just say, the people who you guys have lived with, I can only describe as tests from God in which you lived to tell the tale. I want to start off with something a little more tame, because an alarming amount of these are actually just quite fucking disgusting. The first one: he called the police on me for breaking in. Well, were you? Because listen, if your roommate is watching you come in through the front door with your own key and their instinct is to point and yell, "Dirty kidnapper! 911 is on speed dial!" I guess 911 in of itself is a bit of a speed dial because there's only 3 fucking numbers, right? Then obviously that's insane, because you're just entering your own home. But because we don't really have a lot of details here, I could see a situation where it's, you are coming in from a late night out, you lost your keys, you're a little bit drunk, right? And you have to, break in. I'm just imagining, they're trying to smash through the window with a rock or break off the doorknob with a brick. And, the other roommate's obviously fucking freaked out. They're calling the cops, and then, you step in saying, hi, it's just me, your roommate. But yeah, I kind of love that we don't get a lot of details here because we have to fill in the blanks with our imagination, right? Did this person call the cops on you for coming home from work in a normal fashion? Or was it 3 a.m. and you were trying to get into the apartment, via the vents? We'll never know. My male, I am a female, Housemate's mom visited him every 2 weeks to do his laundry and cook for him. We lived in Austria and he was Greek, so his mom took a flight from Greece every 2 weeks for 3 months to do the housework for him. I need to see how long a flight from Greece to Austria is. Okay, it looks like it's around 2 to 3 hours. And you know what her son could have been doing within those 2 to 3 hours? His own housework. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This is pathetic. It's totally pathetic. I mean, it would be pathetic even if it were a 10-minute drive that his mother was executing. But I mean, getting on a flight. But as pathetic it is for the son, I mean, the mom is also enabling it, because why are you even entertaining the idea of hopping on a flight bi-weekly to do chores for your son? Obviously, I don't want to blame a woman for a man's actions unjustified, but I mean, ma'am, I'm gonna steal your ID and hide it from you so you can't get through the airport because something's gotta give. Because, you know, this is how we get men who are so unfamiliar with a washer and or dryer that watching them trying to operate one is like watching a squirrel trying to work at NASA, right? This is how we get men who think that rinsing the dishes is the same thing as washing them, and now that's why all of our plates and cutlery have a film of grease on it. And I'm not talking about the one starring John Travolta. Now, if I lived with this pathetic man, and don't get me wrong, he could be great at holding a conversation. He could be a hoot and a holler at a party, right? But in this regard, he is pathetic, right? For his own good and self-betterment, I am gonna lie to a higher up in the building and say that his mother tried to attack me and she needs to be banned from the building. And I understand that lying about violence is really never supposed to be okay, but until this man can successfully make a stir fry, I just don't feel safe with her around me. Next one. I was living with a guy for a few months, which was already such an iffy situation, but I found a stash of pee bottles under his bed. I was so grossed out, and I got a different roommate after that. Here's the thing. When you have to pee in the middle of the night, one of the advantages, I presume, right, when you have a Johnson, Dakota Johnson, her web connects us all, right? You're able to forego the bathroom as a whole. And although I don't think I would be the type of person to pee in a bottle in the middle of the night, I can certainly envision that some people are. Some people, I guess, if they're feeling too tired or overwhelmed or scared, I don't know, they let the endeavor of urination kind of be sans the toilet, right? Without the toilet, and they just let that endeavor be between them, God, and a bottle of their choice. However, what I don't understand is the collecting. Okay, the stashing, the storage, the fermenting. If you're super drunk or sick or even just fucking lazy, I can see peeing in it and leaving it there for the night, right? However, letting it linger? Once you have the privilege and honor of feeling the warmth of the morning sun through your bedroom window, you need to get yourself up and empty that goddamn bottle like any semi-well-adjusted human being. It's like, what are you keeping it for? I'm scared, right? For memories? For science? Right? Whatever it is, it can't be worth the stench. Because stale urine, well, it's not necessarily a Febreze vibe, right? And I pray to every god that there is that this wasn't a tried and true shared room situation. Because if something goes awry, something knocks over, God forbid, we have a domino sort of effect, right? That now we're in a situation that is best case scenario, a puddle, and worst case scenario, we need to send a flood warning to the entire college campus. Okay, here's another one. Where to start, LOL. She left a used pad on our floor. We shared a bedroom since it was college. I woke up to her and her boyfriend having sex while I was in the room. She stole from me constantly and let someone sleep in my bed while I went home for the weekend. Also, love your videos. Thank you. Okay, first of all of that, it's not great. But what I absolutely cannot handle is the stealing. Like, girl, can we maybe reach some sort of agreement where maybe you're allowed to leave 2 used pads on the floor if that means that you won't steal from me? Or maybe better yet, could you just be normal? And then the other thing about your roommate having sex with their boyfriend while you're still in the room, it's sort of a thing where it's like, okay, well, if I'm not like included in this even in like a cuck sort of way, then it's like, this is really just rude. You know what I mean? I'll start slut shaming even though I don't believe in it. You know, I'll immerse myself in the character of an Italian nun and just recite Bible passages to you guys to ruin the mood. Or, you know what you can do? Guys, if you're in a roommate situation, your roommate is getting down with the hanky-panky and you're just sitting there, what you can do, stand at the edge of their bed and pull a substitute teacher move, right? I'll wait. And the most funny part about me saying all this is that in reality, if this were to happen to me, I would look over for 0.2 seconds, realize what's happening, put in my headphones, and just pretend like I'm in another realm of existence until it's over. Okay, this one is a doozy. Had a roommate threaten my other roommate with a knife from his knife kink collection because he wanted to end up with her boyfriend. My other roommate and I, not involved, had to call the campus police for them. We had to sleep with pepper spray under our pillows in case he decided to threaten us too. Anyways, love you, Emily. I really hate that for you guys. I think any living situation where you have to have pepper spray not only inside the home, but at the ready, it's not really a home sweet home, live, laugh, love sort of vibe. Living with a man who has a bunch of knives for that specific reason, right? Kink. I'm not too well versed in that realm. Is there perhaps like a stage aspect to this where it's, you know, kind of one of those retractable things where you stab and the blade just goes in? Or when you stab, do you just bleed and die? Because that sounds less pleasant. If it's the latter, I can't say that I would ever want to be living with a man who was wielding those things for real. Maybe we need to come up with some house rules, right? You know, if we are going to brandish sexual items of our choice to assert dominance or express ourselves, they need to be items that can't actually cause us harm, right? Maybe it needs to be something purple with no sharp edges. Okay, moving on. So this isn't my story, but my friend had a roommate that was already just kind of very rude to her. And then one night they came back from a night out and were going to bed, and she hears the roommate get up and finds her peeing on a cart full of her expensive makeup and medication. It was actually insane. Anyways, she called the cops and the roommate tried to say that she was roofied. She was not. And she ended up getting like $5,000 in compensation from the roommate because she was going to ask for $500, but then the roommate wanted to get an exact number and that was the number. So anyway, love your videos. Wait. Okay, so I'm not really sure who was exactly trying to get the most accurate numbers from who, but wow. The girl who executed the urination, she really must have hated your friend, or she really just has bad aim. You know, we always talk about guys having bad aim when they pee, but maybe she wants to be the first woman with bad aim? Meaning that she's just not sitting on the toilet at all? Imagine you come home aghast to see your roommate pissing, and they say to you, "Stop judging me, I just have bad aim." Meanwhile, they're standing on top of the couch. $5,000 worth of makeup and medicine. I don't know what country this story is taking place in, but if it's in America, oh yeah, I believe it. Meaning that she just peed on 1 vial of insulin. I'm just really hoping that the girl didn't realize that there was medication into the mix, because if so, oh, she actually wants you dead. So in my freshman year of college, I had a stink-ass roommate, never saw him shower, use deodorant, etc. What was worse than that is that he never left the room, so the smell would just build for weeks at a time. Ugh. It got to a point where most of the time I was staying with my partner. So one day I'm going through his stuff, like for a notebook or something, and I find a cum jar in his desk. That seems like it's been built up and preserved for months. So needless to say, I moved out ASAP. I'm really struggling to understand the trend of storing your bodily fluids for a later date. I can't really imagine that you're saving this for a rainy day because, okay, what? The day is rainy and now we just have a jar of cum. Also, I really don't like the idea of having and preserved in the same sentence. I don't think that we should be treating that bodily fluid like it needs to be preserved. It's not Black Forest ham. Also, I'm imagining a situation where you confront him about it and you're like, hey, why do you have a jar that's half full of your baby sauce? I'm just wondering. You must have been collecting this for months. And then he goes, oh no, that's just from this afternoon. I just had a lot of time in between classes, so. If I found out that my roommate was keeping a jar of his Prego sauce, so to speak, in his desk, it's like, do you bring it up or not? Because there's really no normal way to go about it. It's like having to tell someone that their breath stinks, but maybe 3 to 5 times worse. You know, how do you naturally segue that into conversation? You know, hey, are you coming to class? Are you coming in general? And if so, is it in places where it's supposed to be? I once had a roomie who always asked about what stuff I use. I never really cared because at first it was just, what lip gloss is that, or where is that shirt from? She then started taking stuff off of my vanity and out of my closet without asking. I'd find out when I would walk around uni and just spot her using my things. I told her it's alright, but she should at least ask. I slowly understood that she's jealous of me for some reason and is becoming a solid carbon copy of me, but didn't really question it because I'm dumb as fuck. Fast forward 3 months later when I walked in on her banging my boyfriend of 2 years, dumped them both, and kicked her out of my apartment the same night. Dear Lord. There is a movie you should watch called The Roommate, starring Leighton Meester and Minka Kelly. Actually, I hope that you've already seen it and that film inspired you to lie to me, because I really just hope that this didn't happen to you. You're coming across in this story as quite kind and humble, you know, because if I ran into my roommate and she was, you know, I see her wearing my bootcut Levi's and her hair smells like my shampoo, oh, we're gonna have a problem. We're gonna have a problem. And by that, I mean, I would approach her quietly and say,
hey, listen, you know, if you want to use my stuff, you could maybe please just ask me first, but also if you want to use it without my permission, you can do that too, and I can just eat shit and die.
I love the way you said, she's becoming a solid carbon copy of me, but I didn't really question it because I'm dumb as fuck. And it's like I'm imagining your roommate, you know, comes out into the living area, she's wearing your same exact outfit, has a wig on to look exactly like you, and she's wearing a name tag that says, hi, I'm you. And you're just sitting there like, huh, now that is really interesting. It's almost like I wonder if your boyfriend was sleeping with her because he thought that she was you. But I don't think that's the case, and I'm sorry for that. Next one. She made fun of me for farting too much. Turns out I'm lactose intolerant. Is that ableist? I don't know. That's a fun experiment. Let's turn that into a Twitter discourse. If you make fun of me for being gassy when that is just my natural disposition in the way that God made me, am I allowed to call you ableist for that? And even if it's not warranted, can I just do it for fun? I would like to have a piece of pizza and a milkshake without causing trembles in my stomach that could read on the Richter scale, but I can't. And that is not my fault. So the next time that you want to make a joke about it, I will be recording that interaction and I will be posting it online to get you canceled so you will never work in this town again. Meanwhile, I'm talking to my boss and we work in finance. Moving on, I was roommates with this girl while on a trip abroad. She seemed nice and we got on well until day 3. When I came back to my room after a hike I took, needing to really quickly shower and get changed to go to dinner, I knocked on the door. No answer. I called her. No answer. I tried to get in with my key and thought it was broken, although I later realized she had probably locked the door from the inside. After 15 minutes of trying to get in, she texts me saying, "I need alone time today." I understand needing alone time, but I desperately wanted to access my room. I said it was fine to keep the peace and went to dinner drenched in sweat from my hike and in a horrible outfit. I'm sure that enhanced the experience, made it less enjoyable, but it was fine. Got back to the room in the evening only to discover she was still having her alone time and would not let me access the room. I had no one I was close enough with to crash in the country, so I waited outside the door for 4 hours until her alone time was over. It was 3 a.m. and I was so mad. This happened numerous times throughout the trip, but I was too broke to get my own room. Okay, so what's going on there? What is happening during this alone time? Why is it so long? Why is it so often? I have a lot of questions. If I were you, God, I would be so pissed, okay? Especially after doing a physical activity like a hike. After you do a physical activity like going to the gym, going for a run, climbing, anything like that, the reward you get for doing bullshit like that is being able to come, it's not bullshit, exercise is healthy. You should be able to come home and lay on your bed like a paralyzed starfish on a rock. That is your right, and she took that away from you. Alone time for multiple hours, forbidding your roommate to enter the space, and mind you, this is her room too, this is your room too. Like, what is she doing in there? Renovating? You know, maybe this girl had other things going on. I mean, it's clear that something was going on, right? But I don't know, when you're sharing a literal room with someone, the version of alone time that you're getting is putting in your earbuds and just ignoring them, right? Whatever happened to tradition? So this one is really riveting. I ate peanut butter, but I didn't know that my roommate dipped his penis in there until after I ate it. And no, there wasn't a penis-shaped dent in there. Right. So how did you end up finding out if there was no dent? Also, why did this person cover their tracks so well? Because dipping your blankety-blank into a jar of peanut butter almost seems like a prank where the punchline is dependent on the dent being there, but it sounds like he was doing it in secret. And to that I ask, why? What are you really getting out of this experience besides peanut butter on your genitals? Maybe you're getting experience in restoration, right? Trying to make the peanut butter look like it was never touched, or, let alone experienced blunt force trauma. Were you trying to make a sandwich and you ran out of silverware, so you decided to improvise? Or perhaps you thought that you had to put the nut in peanut butter, so you fucked the jar? I'm just brainstorming. And I really hate to ask this question, but do you have a dog? And if so, I'm really scared right now. Okay, my roommate started dating my brother and gaslit both of us for 6 months. She would lie and tell me they broke up and he was stalking her, and then she'd tell him that she was excited to come to Christmas dinner. She was also cheating on him at the time. She would also turn lights on in my room and open my makeup and convince me that I left it that way and I was going crazy. She was also part of an MLM. She's like Barbie, she can do it all. I don't know, it seems like these types of people, if they don't have like a personality disorder, they must just be really bored. Is that problematic to say? We'll see. It sounds like she's treating lying as a sport and baby, she's going for gold. People who are, pathological liars like this do fascinate me, especially when the story is not being kept straight. It's one thing if you lie and you're consistent with the lie no matter who you're talking to, but when you're telling different people different things, it's like, this is just not gonna fare well for you, You're telling lies to people who are related and in contact with each other. I mean, you might as well just get the whole family together at the dinner table, turn to your left and say, God, I can't wait for the lemon chicken. And then immediately turn to your right and say, I've been a strict vegetarian for 17 years. Also, cheating on your partner while you're roommates with their sibling. It's like, if you're gonna cheat, at least move out first. Like, have some decorum. All right, another one. I lived with this guy first year of uni who was so incompetent in the kitchen, it was actually dangerous. I walked into him frisbeeing burgers into the oven of our shared kitchen because he couldn't find a tray. Okay. He then proceeded to try removing the burgers with his bare hands, which gave him third-degree burns and left the grill racks fucked. Not to mention the unreachable chunks of burger that had broken off and burned from the impact of him throwing them all the way to the back of the oven. Half of the house were vegetarians. He would also always cook barefoot and leave his shit everywhere, even after we complained, to the point that my friend would put his dirty dishes and leftover food directly in front of his door so that he would step in them whenever he left his room. He didn't like that very much. Okay. I'm forewarning you, I'm going to sound really hateful for a second, but I'm asking with genuine curiosity. Is he actually stupid? I mean, you put this guy into a cooking reality TV show and it's basically a suicide mission. He's gonna reach into an active blender to pull the smoothie out manually. I don't know, is this like some sort of alpha thing? Where it's like, I'm man enough, I'm strong enough, tongs, spatulas, oven mitts, those are for beta male cucks, right? And if that's the case, I mean, consider me cucked. I'm not reaching into the oven with my bare hands, especially not for a damn burger that is disfigured at best and dismembered at worst. Next one. Hey diva. First of all, love your vids. On to the story, genuinely disgusting. Forewarning. For context, this was in my first year of uni. I'm an international student studying in the UK, and I was put in a room with someone I didn't know. Bad enough, he was, maybe is, a heavy drinker and clubber, so he'd always come back shit-faced at 2 a.m. while I had 9 a.m. lectures the next day. That sounds terrible. The worst one by far was when he came back one night so drunk he couldn't even walk on his own. 4 to 5 of his friends had to drag him back to our shared room around 1:30 a.m. He had vomited on his way up at some point, and once back in the room, he vomited again. In the toilet, but the stench was appalling. He was also leaving behind a trail of what seemed like puffed Doritos. And it's been 3 years and I still don't know what that was. Either way, they smelt horrible too. On the bright side, right? His friends then decided to make a ruckus, being loud and shit, whilst their bestie was literally dead on his bed. This was 2 a.m. by now and I had to tell them to shut up, but obviously they didn't listen. I eventually had enough and I called a friend of mine to see if he was still awake so I could go to his to sleep for the night, and I was about to leave and he threw up again on his sheets this time, and his friends wrapped it up and put it near our toilet. Then I was like, okay, I'm leaving, because this had to be some sort of violation to me as a human. And as I was about to leave, his friends said they were going to leave too, and I was a lot more meek back then, but I was thinking, what if he literally threw up in his sleep and choked to death? Then I realized he's not my ward, so I packed up and left anyways. I came back at 4 p.m. the next day to give him a clean 12 plus hours to get in shape. Thank goodness it was a weekend. I get back in, and get this. He unwrapped the vomit-soiled blanket and wrapped himself in it to sleep again. I was so shocked. I told him to clean up, and he was like, yes, yes. And I gave him another few hours, but to no avail. I came back to that stench of the vomit again. Those puffed Doritos still scattered, whatever they were. And I had to tell him to clean up again, and he finally did. And I opened our windows and sprayed antibacterial aerosol literally everywhere. Safe to say, from then on, I never shared a room with anyone ever again. My flabbers were just so gasted at the thought of having to tell someone to clean up their own vomit and waste multiple times. Side note, he's studying to be a doctor, and time again he would ask his friends at 2 a.m. what the test at 9:30 the next day would be on. If he's ever listed as my doctor, I'm just moving countries. Love your vids, queen. Wow. College really is the only environment where something like this could ever be considered rite of passage. Once you get past the age of around 25, if you're acting like this, your friends and family are already scheduling the intervention. Wrapping yourself up in the blanket that you threw up in. Well, I guess people like to say that they like to feel like a burrito all wrapped up in their blanket, right? And I guess in a way he's staying more true to form because he's adding ingredients inside it. Kind of like a Vom salsa verde. I also want to address the trail of puffed substance he was leaving behind. Why are we playing Hansel and Gretel, but you're the only one participating? Okay? Who am I mimicking? There's someone I'm mimicking. I feel like it's a Republican senator. But I don't understand when people see food or waste drop to the floor and they just decide not to pick it up. I can't understand. I don't know what's going through their mind. Is it sort of a thing where it's like, okay, well, if it fell there, that's its destiny, and I'm not going to move it. That's where it belongs now. Who am I to play God? Maybe you were a raccoon or a pig in a past life, but now you're a man. So I am going to need you to pick up your trash, please. When I was in college, one of my suite mates, let's call her Liz, had a boyfriend who was constantly over and basically kicked her real roommate out to the couch in the common room because he would just be there staring at her when the roommate would wake up. One time when I was brushing my teeth in the morning, I just saw his reflection in the mirror behind me, and he was staring in the dark in our common room like the fucking killer. Not even on his phone or anything. He didn't even do anything. He just stared. Like, even when I saw him and turned back and was like, hey, he was just standing in the dark. This cryptic behavior continued until they broke up, but I still kept my doors locked because I was jump scared by his lurking too many times. What the hell? That's really hard when you don't like your roommate's significant other and they're over all the time, especially when they have the aura of a hallucination rather than a person. I'm just wondering, was this ever addressed with the roommate or did she already know about it? Because I'm sort of like, okay, if she knew that he was behaving like this and it went unaddressed, it's kind of like, huh. It gives me the same vibe as, when people say, oh, don't worry about my dog, he's so friendly. Meanwhile, the dog looks like it craves human flesh. This one says he was a straight man and he unfortunately was 100% my type. No. That is a curse. Having complicated feelings for a roommate who you aren't actually romantically involved with, I wouldn't really wish that upon anyone. This is my home. Why is my heart rate going up? You know what I mean? If I'm single and I am living with someone that I am attracted to, and God forbid the attraction is mutual, I'm just going to have to squander those feelings or move out, right? Because say we get into this complicated situation, now all of a sudden I'm thinking to myself, should I wear lingerie out into the kitchen to cook eggs? For why? Obviously, I've gotten to a point in my life where I feel a lot more comfortable with romance. I would hope so, considering I've been in a relationship for almost 2 years. But before that, I didn't ever care to be vexed by another person unless I was ready and in control of it. Okay, guys, last one. My roommate in college is a Therian. I don't know what that is. I'm gonna Google that. Okay, I was confused at first because when I Googled Therian, animal just came up and a picture of a pig. So then I Googled, what does it mean if someone identifies as Therian? And it just means someone who identifies as a non-human animal to some degree. Okay, so great, we have the definition. My roommate in college is a Therian, or as she called herself, a puppy girl. I wish I was lying when I tell you this, but sadly I am not. She would sleep in a dog bed, like a real dog bed. She put on top of the bed the school provided in dorms. She would only eat and drink out of dog bowls. She had traveled ones she would take with her to class in the dining hall. She wore clip-on dog ears and a tail every day. Anytime she left the dorm, she would get on a call and she would put them on. She'd fully bark and whimper at people. She had her girlfriend take her on walks around campus on a leash. She had shirts and skirts that said puppy girl on them, and one had the vet symbol for spade on it. That's actually funny. Anytime she made a mistake on homework or would offend someone or say something weird, she'd say, "My dumb puppy brain." I tried multiple times to switch roommates, but the school kept saying there weren't any available. Okay, well, if this is true, to look on the positive side, she is showing a type of dedication that method actors can only aspire to, right? You know, when Daniel Day-Lewis does it, he's a generational talent. But when I do it, I'm using the IKEA bowl as a cocktail glass. But I guess there is the key difference here of this girl isn't an actor, and she, I guess, is just living her truth, which in a way is more admirable. Okay, well, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed today's horrors. I know I did. But okay, I'm thinking for the next call and response video, I'm going to give 3 options, and whichever one seems to get the most like response in the comments will win, okay? So I'm thinking we can either do family drama, coworker horror stories, or in a general sense, your most embarrassing moments. So comment down below, let me know which one sounds the most enticing to you, right? But yeah, thanks for tagging along with me today. I hope you guys have a great day. Get some boba if you have the means. And yeah, until next time.